There are moments in human history when everything shifts, not through explosions or grand declarations, but through subtle, nearly imperceptible turns. Moments we don't fully understand until much later. Moments that fracture what we thought was truth and push us to reevaluate our place in the cosmos. Today, we may be standing at the edge of such a moment. One that, if real, could redefine not only what we know, but who we are. And it all started with an image. Tucked away in the vast archives of the James Webb Space Telescope, an early deep-field photograph quietly resurfaced. To the public, it was nothing more than a stunning portrait of the early universe. A sprawling field of galaxies, ancient light traveling billions of years to finally meet our eyes. The image, officially labeled as JWST Field M723, was praised as a technological triumph. It showed swirling galaxies, the faint signatures of dead stars, and the shimmering hints of planets too far to imagine. But hidden in the celebration, buried beneath the surface, something was missed. A few strange pixels. A patch of infrared data marked for internal review. Nothing unusual on the surface. Astronomers often flag sections of data for calibration. But this time, those flagged pixels were quietly removed from the public dataset. No statement. No explanation. No access. That silence, it turns out, was the first clue. Over the months that followed, whispers began to spread, within astronomer circles, research forums, and obscure observatory reports. Some claimed to have seen the missing data. Fewer would describe what they saw. But eventually, under pressure and through a series of quiet leaks, the redacted information was released. What it showed wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a black hole. It was something else. At first glance, the anomaly looked like a faint thermal blur. A soft shadow in the background. But when scientists layered wavelengths, enhanced spectral ranges, and conducted temporal comparisons, the shape began to sharpen. And then, it pulsed. Regularly. Predictably. With structure. Not the chaotic flicker of a distant star. Not the swirling pattern of cosmic dust. This was rhythmic, intentional, designed. A discrete frequency analysis revealed something stunning: harmonics. Symmetry. Musical structure in space. Peaks in the waveform spaced like notes in a chord. The object wasn't just radiating heat. It was transmitting order. Then came the historical link. In 2002, during a routine data transmission from the Voyager 2 spacecraft, NASA logged an odd signal. It was faint, embedded in the background noise, and dismissed as interference. But now, over 2 decades later, that same signal reappeared, buried in the Webb data. Not similar. Identical. 2 different sources. 2 different points in space. 2 different eras. 1 signal. What did it mean? Some theorized the pattern was a kind of cosmic synchronization, like a timestamp left by something ancient. Others proposed something more profound, a beacon, quietly waiting to be discovered. NASA gave no comment, only referring to it as a classified anomaly under analysis, but leaked memos told another story. Defense agencies. Intelligence divisions. Entities far beyond the realm of space science became involved. Suddenly, this wasn't just an astronomical puzzle. It was a matter of planetary attention. And then, a theory emerged that gripped the scientific imagination: the Sentinel hypothesis. According to this model, highly advanced civilizations don't send ships or messages in the way we expect. Instead, they leave behind passive instruments, watchers. Sentinels. Devices hidden across the galaxy, waiting not to contact, but to measure. Measure what? Intelligence. A cosmic test, not to say hello, but to see who reaches the threshold. And this might be that threshold. More eerie discoveries followed. The signal was changing. A second layer appeared in its structure. A modulation shift. Something had been triggered. The transmission was evolving. And when run through advanced quantum analysis software, the signal began to behave strangely. It started predicting things. Star positions, orbital alignments, rotational velocities of distant galaxies that hadn't yet reached their projected coordinates. Not because the signal was magical, but because it had been crafted with knowledge of the future, a future visible only to a civilization so advanced, it could see time the way we see space. One name began circulating among researchers. It began, not with light, but with a reflection. A whisper that wasn't heard, but felt. A signal, first detected as a strange gravitational irregularity, a distortion in the data coming from deep field observations by the James Webb Space Telescope. At first, scientists thought it was an anomaly. An echo. A strange interplay between distant galaxies, black holes, or dark matter. But the pattern persisted. And then, it grew. Because this signal didn't merely reflect energy, it reflected us. It was as if the cosmos had taken a snapshot of consciousness itself and woven it into the fabric of spacetime. A holographic echo, imprinted not on airwaves but on gravity. On structure. On reality. The more physicists and AI researchers analyzed it, the more impossible it seemed. The signal wasn't in any known language. It wasn't even sound or light. It was embedded in spacetime like fingerprints pressed into the surface of existence. And then came the most disturbing part. Inside this gravitational echo, this cosmic mirror, were embedded instructions. Schematics, blueprints, quantum equations far beyond current understanding, not for communication. Not for a message. But for construction. A receiver. A quantum interface. A device, meant to respond. The implication was earth-shattering. This wasn't a call waiting for a reply, it was a test. A beacon, left like a matchstick at the edge of the void, daring a civilization bold, or foolish, enough to strike it. The global scientific community fractured. Some resigned immediately, fearing the consequences of building such a device. Others declared it a hoax, a trick of data or overreaching interpretation. But a few, a small, determined few, pressed forward. Whether out of curiosity, duty, or obsession, they began the first designs. They called the device, the mirror interface. Constructed from superconductive lattices, gravitational phase crystals, and quantum harmonic stabilizers, components theorized only in fringe physics, it was unlike any machine before it. Not a transmitter. Not a telescope. But a reply. And as its construction neared completion, the anomalies escalated. Quantum labs across the globe, completely disconnected from the project, began recording impossible phenomena. Photon delays. Entangled particles behaving erratically. Randomness that adapted when observed. As if the universe wasn't just watching. It was reacting. Some said we had activated something. Others believed it had always been there, sleeping. Waiting. Watching civilizations rise and fall, measuring their capacity not for war or peace, but for awareness. Because this wasn't a message from across the stars. It was a checkpoint. A cosmic boundary drawn in silence, waiting for a species advanced enough to decode it, and reckless enough to answer. And now, we've answered. The James Webb Space Telescope, once hailed as humanity's greatest eye into the past, has become something more. A mirror, yes. But also a key. A portal. Not in the sci-fi sense, but in a deeper, more terrifying way. It has reflected us back to ourselves, and in doing so, it has summoned something ancient. Something watching not just Earth, but every civilization that dared to cross the threshold of consciousness. Because the whisper we thought we heard across the void? It wasn't just data. It was a voice. A presence. And now, that presence is no longer silent. It's waiting. Not to teach us. Not to greet us. But to observe what we do next. The question is no longer, are we alone? It's something far more difficult, are we ready? Ready to listen. Ready to understand. ready to step into a universe that was never silent, just waiting for us to become loud enough to hear it. Because the door is open now. And what waits beyond is not fiction.